Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Gabby. Nice to hear from you.
Absolutely, and that voice, guys, that you can hear is Ian Storey-Moore, or to give him his real name, Storey-Moore, my lord, or Ian Storey-Moore. What a player! I can't quite work it out, but an
Well,
absolute forest god. We did a podcast a few years ago now, Ian, and I said to
mm-hmm.
you, you know, you should write a book. And you was a little bit reticent to write that book, but now the book has been written, and we're going to be talking about that book that's coming out on the 23rd of October. You can pre-order it on Amazon or any of the places that you purchase your books, guys. So, Ian Storey-Moore, what was the feeling behind writing the book?
Well, it was strange, as I said to you before, and I think you quite rightly said I was rather reticent about doing it because, my ex-footballing pals of that era have done one, and, some have done better than others, and I just thought, well, everybody's done one, so what's the point of another old has-been doing one? So, but it was strange, because I was in Costa Coffee in Bingham, where I live, and this gentleman walked in, and he said, excuse me, he said, are you Ian Storey-Moore? I said, yes, I am. I said, he said, well, I'm a big Forest fan. He said, just wanted to say hello to you and how are you, blah, blah, blah. So that was fine. I sat down, finished my coffee, and about half an hour later, he popped in again and left me a note. So when I got home, I read this note, and he explained to me that they'd written books before, him and his colleague called Richard Nicholson. The gentleman's name was called Stuart Humphreys, who I met.
Richard Harrison.
Richard House, and I think he does a little bit in the programme for Nottingham Forest every week. Does an article, yeah. So a very nice gentleman, anyhow. And he left me his telephone, so I did, out of courtesy, ring. I said, well, I'm not particularly interested, to be honest with you, Stuart. He said. And anyhow, after his numerous phone calls, he actually persuaded me. He said, well, I think you should do it. So I asked a couple of my old football colleagues, Martin O'Neill, Robbo, John Roberts, and Dave Bassett, and they all said, yeah, go ahead and do it. He said, I think it'd be good. So reluctantly, I did it, and hopefully it might make some interesting reading.
See, this is the thing that I love about you, legends, and guys, for the younger listeners. When people say Ian Storey-Moore, if he was on the market today, he would be over £100 million for his transfer at least. It does say in the book, Storey-Moore, give him the ball and he'll score. And the player that Cloughy couldn't buy, we have talked about that. Brian Clough couldn't buy you, but if anybody did try to buy you now, it would be over 100 million because, Ian, you would be one of the stars of the Premier League. You were that good a player. It's beyond comprehension. And I love the fact that you're all writing books because we can read your stories, and that's why I love doing the podcasts to listen to your stories.
Yeah. Well, that's very kind words of you. I'll leave it for other people to, have an opinion about my playing abilities. But yeah, I did have the ability to make golden score goals, and which I think is a, prime asset certainly in today's football. And I was just talking to a friend of mine today about the, the wages and the transfer fees. Now they're astronomical, aren't they? And I just can't get my head around some of them. When you think that, listen, I'm sure he's a very good player. The lad Casido went to Chelsea, 115 million, played one season in the Premiership. One season, he's 115 million pounds. I'm not decrying the lad at all. I'm sure he's a very, very good player, but for one season in the Premiership and goes to 115 million pounds, God, it's crazy money now, isn't it?
Now, you're manager, and we're going to be doing another podcast, A Game of My Life, where I like to look at a specific game and the times around that game. But your manager at the time of you getting to the Cup semi-final was the great Johnny Carey. And when you were talking about that, Sir Matt Busby, said to John, he wasn't playing one of the days, and he said, go over to Barnsley and check out this fella Tommy Taylor, I want a report. Anyhow, Johnny Carey come back, he give him the report. He says, thanks, John. That's the 12th person that I've had the report from. Carey thought it was exceptional that the man, Busby, had asked him. And this is what I'm getting at, Ian.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, managers did the background. Managers had trusted people, sometimes captains of the team that wasn't playing, or scouts or members of their backroom staff, to check out these players. These days, you play a season and you're worth 115 million. It beggars belief, doesn't it, how the game's changed?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, it's changed dramatically over the years. I mean, when I played, it's changed. Oh, absolutely, 100%. You know, I mean, as I say, the wages and the transfer fees are astronomical now. I mean, you know, I mean, I think there was three of us at the particular time. We were all sold for about £200,000, myself, Alan Ball and Martin Peters.
Yes.
And people were saying, oh, it's just crazy. I mean, I think you'd be fortunate to buy a ball boy for 200,000 now, wouldn't you, Gabby? So you know, that's the state of play we're in at the moment. It's very difficult to get bargains now, isn't it? You know, I go over to Burton Albion quite a lot, and you know, my friend owns Burton Albion. He's a really good friend of mine, and they do remarkably well considering the budget they've got to spend. You know, when they're getting 2,500 gates, and you know, it's a different level altogether down there. I think certainly it's just the Premiership's awash with money, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes, it is. Unfortunately, it stays there, and unfortunately, it doesn't filter down to the grassroots, and where everybody started off playing jumpers for goalposts. You learnt your trade,
That's right,
and that's
absolutely.
how we got brought up on football. And match of the day in those days was the match of the day, and it could be from any league. It wasn't a promotional, a PR exercise for the Premier League. Did you actually write the book? Because it says it's an authorised biography. So did you have chats with the guys, and then they wrote the stories from the chats?
Absolutely. Yeah, I met Stuart Humphreys on quite a number of occasions over the last year or so, and he brought his little tape recorder with him, and we spoke at length for about an hour or so, and you know, I think he sort of went from there. Actually, went home, listened to it, and put it all together, and you know, we've got some quite interesting pictures in it with, you know, one or two celebrities I met over my time, and yeah, I think it might be interesting. Certainly, you know, my time at Manchester United, which was although it was brief, and you know, actually privileged to play with the great players like you know, well, the British icons were, well, world football really icons, you know, Best, Charlton and Law. So for me to be in the same dressing room as them was an absolute privilege, and to be on the same field was even more. So that was a wonderful time of my life. And you know, of course, the Brian Clough saga, where you know, tried to sign me, paraded me on the pitch, and that all fell through. That's all in the book. And you know, my bad injury at Manchester United, where, you know, to be quite honestly, I didn't really think I'd got the best medical treatment there. But so things like that are in the book, and I think it'll be reasonably interesting.
And I think it's great when you're talking about the physios back in those days. I remember Alan telling me at Stoke City they had a gynecologist. Terry Curran says, Gabby, don't talk to me about physios. Back in those days, they wasn't really qualified, was they? And the players of today don't realise they're born.
Well, a lot weren't, you know. I mean, you know, my good friend Liam O'Kane, and no disrespect, and when he was the coach stroke trainer at Nottingham Forest, he had to run on the pitch with a bucket and a sponge. I mean, Liam never did it himself. He wasn't qualified at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't, you know, deem to see if somebody had a really bad injury. He wouldn't know. And not Liam's fault at all, but that was it in those days. Bucket and sponge and one of these cold sprays, and that was it. Get up and you'll be all right, so to speak. You know, it was quite bizarre. I think the thing that's helped physios now, to be fair, I mean, when I had my bad injury at Manchester United, there wasn't scans in those days, so consequently, if you had an X-ray and they found that nothing was broken, they thought you were going to be all right again. You know, when I sustained that injury at Old Trafford at the training ground, you know, my ankle came up like a balloon, black and blue, Of course, when that went down and they said, well, you've had the X-ray, nothing's broken, you'd be fine. What they didn't realise that X-rays didn't show when you had bad ligament damage, which I had.
Yeah.
So consequently, it was like a trial and error job for about 4 or 5 months. Playing, training, work, breaking down, playing again, training again, breaking down again. Consequently, until I went to see a specialist in London at the end of that season, he knew straight away that I needed an operation, which they duly did.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. It wouldn't happen today.
Not now. Oh, absolutely not.
And with players that had to retire early, and you retired at the age of 28, wouldn't have had to retire so early because they would have been able to mend them. But times were very different then. The book comes out on the 23rd of October this year. Front cover's a great front cover. You're almost like looking through the lens with intent, and that intent is to entertain and to score goals. That was the story of Ian Moore.
Well, I thought that was my job. I think it's very simplistic if you're a forward. I mean, I have one or two arguments with about these forwards these days. They look very pretty on the halfway line, tricks and little tricks on the halfway line, kicking the ball up and down, etc. But I just think as a forward, it's two simplistic things: you score goals and make goals. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
It's no good looking at a good player if you're a forward on the halfway line. Get it done where it matters in the top end of the pitch in their penalty area, where the first starts to fly there, doesn't it? Where you've got to evade tackles. And it's all about scoring goals and making goals as a forward, and fortunately I had the ability to do that.
Absolutely, goal maker and goal taker. And this authorised biography, Martin has written the foreword for you, hasn't he?
By the way, which is absolutely excellent. I thought it would just be sort of, half a page, but he spent an awful lot of time in Martin. And, when I read it, I thought, oh, God, you should be an author, Martin. Actually, the guy that wrote the book showed him, he said he should have done the whole book. So I think Martin done a book, hasn't he? I think he wrote it himself.
Yes.
So the foreword's, absolutely brilliant. So that's a very interesting read, yeah.
When people say, if you can talk, you can write, and Martin can do both. He was a great player, a great talker, and a great writer.
Yeah. Oh, very amusing, Martin. He's a really funny guy. He's one of his plenty of good one-liners, that we can't talk about now, but sometime maybe in future I can tell you one or two Martin's one-liners. Very, very funny man, and very amusing, good player, good manager, and he's had a great career.
Absolutely. So we're looking forward to the book coming out, Ian.
Good.
Wishing you and the guys all the very best. It's a must. It comes out at a lovely time of the year, October, just for the Christmas market. And the book will appeal to any football fan. You don't have to be a fan of Nottingham Forest or Manchester United, primarily the two clubs you played for. You did play for Burton Albion as well, of course.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
You did play, for Chicago Sting out there in America as well. But pretty much Nottingham Forest and Manchester United, a legend at both. Ian Storey-Moore, what a player. Storey-Moore, my lord. And the book, give Storey-Moore the ball pretty much and he'll score. You did. The man that Cloughie couldn't buy, coming out on the 23rd of October 2023. Fantastic, Ian, and brilliant. All the very best for that book.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Thank you for your kind words. Really appreciate it. Thank you.